Woo! Long time no see. I know you guys didn't think we were going to finish the year without anything after season 2. So this is a special edition episode, our Royal Roundtable, okay? And today we are talking about accountability. So have a seat, share this with a friend, and let's dive into this amazing conversation. Miss you guys and looking forward to it. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Kings Speak. You know, we have Kings Speak. Kings Speak is where we really give a platform and a voice to men to talk about emotional intelligence, self-mastery, brotherhood, and things like that. But you know, when it comes to harmonizing relationships between men and women, whether it be platonic, relationship, corporate, or whatever it might be, that we got to have the women with us too. So we have Queen's Glean, and today we are doing both together. So why don't we just jump into this conversation on accountability? Y'all can see I haven't done this in a minute. Like, what has it been? 3 months since we've seen you? Lots of lessons and shifts and moves and great things happening. So why don't we dive into this conversation? Let me go see who's up from our panel. Like always, I got my girl, Queen's Glean. If you guys watch, then you already know Miss Surrender Sessions herself. Keandra is in the building. What's going on, Keandra? Girl, it has been so long.
To even hear the little intro, it has been so long. Like, again, like listening to the intro and just being here, getting myself ready. It was like, what am I doing? It's just been so long. So I've missed everybody.
Me too. I love to hear it. And speaking of everybody, you know, we got to get our girl loving good music, Queen Cookie, up in here. What's going on, Queen Cookie? Welcome back.
Hey, ladies. Can you guys hear me?
We can.
Yes.
Okay, cool. I just want to make sure. You know, it's been a while.
Hello.
Oh,
Look at me. I'm stumbling over my intro like, this is what we do. What? Who? Okay. Yep. It's all good. We're going to get back in the rhythm of things. And last but not least, and I'm going to have to say last but not least, because we had like 5-6 guys that were going to join us, but we got one of the most brilliant men that we've had on the show thus far in the building with us. So we just going to have him represent for the men, and that's going to be Coach Talib. What's going on, Talib?
Hey.
Oh, you muted.
Uh-oh.
There you go.
Yes. Well, you called me. Well, good. I was muted because I was panicking and I'm the only person here to rap, but, you know, let's do it.
I mean, your man's left you high and dry today. Like, you know.
It was unexpected.
You know what? To be honest, though, when I created this title and we were coming up with it and Keandra and I were talking about, you were actually the first guy that I thought about. So I don't know if that means anything, but
it does.
Yes. So today we are talking accountability, and I think it's such a great topic all across the board. Because accountability is something that adds value to our lives if we're willing to do the work and go through the hard things it takes to really stand in that. So the first question I want to ask, and this is casual, you guys know this is just discussion. What we're hoping is people watching get value or some understanding or something that helps them grow and, you know, find themselves in the conversation. So I'll just kind of popcorn it out, but we'll start with Keandra and then whoever wants to answer. But what does accountability mean to you?
To me, it means responsibility. Whether it's or you know what, actually, I think for me it means ownership. Like taking ownership of yourself, of what it is that you commit to do, of what it is that you want to follow through for other people. Yeah, I would say it's for me, it's about ownership.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
What do you think,
Yeah.
Talib?
Yeah, you know, I think that accountability is really about understanding that, you know, we're grown people, right? In my opinion, you know, once you get a certain age, you know how to do things, how to be. There's more to learn, but you know. So for me, it's like if I'm grown enough to do a thing or say a thing or be about a thing, then I should be able to say, yeah, I did that, you know? And so that was kind of my first lessons in just being accountable for your actions. There's no reason to hide things when there's no reason to hide things, you know? There's no reason to not take ownership when you can own it. So, I mean, that's pretty much accountability. It's very simple for me. It's a principle.
A principle. Absolutely. I love both of those answers. What do you think, Queen Cookie? What do you think when you hear accountability?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Keandra all the way, just owning your stuff. I think that, like Talib said, like at a certain age in your life, I don't know, it's different for different people, but at a certain point in your life, you can't overlook that anymore, you know, because there's something else like pulling inside of you saying like, like, you know, and so I think of that. I think of integrity. I think of, you know, a couple different words come to mind, but I really liked ownership as well. But yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I have to agree with all of you. And unfortunately, I can't cite the source because I was looking at a bunch of things, but you know, something that I picked up off the internet somewhere is being responsible for your choices and the consequences of your choices. And I think when it comes to being responsible for the consequence of your choice, you do have to have a certain posture about yourself where you're not afraid to, you know, take ownership, like you said, Talib, the ownership of the things that you do. And I don't know about you guys, but it's helped me so much in life to be okay with being accountable. And to me, it's something that's not very easy. Especially if, you know, you might be in a stage where you're still in your ego space, or you maybe grew up. I think BJ Williams, he was on one of our shows at Kings Speak, and he kind of spoke about finding ways to be accountable when it comes to his relationship, because he grew up always being, you know, maybe by his mother or someone else, like being a little bit nitpicked at. So by the time you get grown, you're like, I'm doing everything right. Y'all are about to nitpick me even more, you know? So sometimes it becomes challenging. So does anybody have any, like, how has being accountable actually added value to your life?
I would say for me, I think about the consequences and how I will actually feel about something if I, you know, outside of, there was a time, and you know, often we can all be influenced by other people's opinions, and you know, making choices that are because other people have these expectations, or you know, the protocol, the rules, whatever. And then you get out of a space where you're like, I'm just going to do me. But in the doing me, if it's something where I'm going to look back and not be proud of myself, or not feel good about it, then it makes me reconsider. This isn't to say that, you know, don't have the spontaneous moments of doing something where it's like, oh, maybe I should have said that a little differently, or, you know, run that back a little bit. But I think it helps me, it reminds me to stay in my own integrity. I think that was, you know, one of the words that you said of just, hey, like if I can't respect myself after whatever this is, then that is one of the baselines of perhaps I should make a different decision, not, you know, not act on a particular thing. But I think it just really kind of keeps me in line with my own integrity for myself.
Word.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you know, to that point, I think it adds value in the peace, you know, the peace value that you get from not having to look over your shoulder or wonder when the shoe is going to drop, or just for your own emotional and mental wellness. It's tough holding stuff that you don't, that doesn't feel good, you know, and you know it doesn't feel good, and you know it messes with you. So I think overall, just having that ability to have peace because you have the ability to be accountable and own your stuff, that to me is the most important.
The peace, that is a word.
I was definitely in alignment with that. When you first asked the question, the first thing I thought was freedom. when you're accountable to yourself, you don't have to worry about people holding things over your head or saying, no, you didn't, or you said it this way, you did it this way. When you walk your walk and talk your talk, you're free, and that it's aligned with what Talib say. It's that peace of mind of just knowing that, nobody can come for me or can say anything, because I hold myself accountable to, my highest regard. So nobody can say anything to me. But yes, freedom, peace, like I love all of that. And I feel like everybody gets to that moment, because you're in that space of feeling you're trapped because you're not being accountable for your actions, and you have to steadily make like, I guess like just making like excuses for your actions, and nobody wants to live in excuse land. And so, just being free.
Well, some people like to live in excuse land. And that's what I was going to say too. When you're walking your walk and talking your talk, I had to really think about that, because sometimes, like, I'm not mad at somebody who stands in their conviction about, this is how I roll, this is what I said, this is what I meant, and da, da, da. But when in relationship, and again, when I say relationship, it's not just romantic, it's corporate, it's platonic, it's all of these things. Like, how do you say? When you have different mindsets, you can be very bold about what it is that you stand for. But I think when it comes to accountability, you've got to be in a space where you can see where you've caused harm to somebody, where your convictions and what you believe and what you do and how you move, sure, that might be yours. But when you cause harm to somebody, to me, that is a red flag. And it's, whether you agree with the harm or not, like, how deep can we look into the layers of the things we've said or done to open ourselves up to have some mindfulness, to understand, maybe, well, why did we allow that person, what did we do to contribute to this person feeling this way? So, and that's why relationships, they get a little bit tough. You have to, have a little bit more understanding beyond what your convictions are, especially if, we're not always right. They always say, there's that person's truth, this person's truth, and then what really happened. And because we're such different people, everything is always so colored with so many other nuances. But it's like, how do you guys deal with, I would say, connecting with someone or trying to resolve an issue with someone who just believes that they're right and doesn't have any apologizing or making amends to bring to the table, because they feel like accountability means, well, this is how I roll or whatever? How do you resolve with anyone? If that's the,
I mean, sometimes you don't. And I say that in a sense that we all have a choice in the matter, right? So we don't have to stick around, deal with people who can't see themselves, right? Don't has a lack of awareness, lack of emotional intelligence. That's the red flag, not the part where they're saying, I said it and it's good. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's the person who has no awareness, right? That, because that's where it starts, is that they can't even consider or have a thought about, well, how does this make someone feel? Or at the very least, have some reflective moments, because you receive feedback, hopefully, from someone who said, wait a minute, just because you believe that doesn't work for me, it doesn't work for us, and I need us to look at it a different way. You would hope that someone even has that space for being reflective enough to say, well, this is feedback, what can I do with it? But a lot of people don't, and so and it has so much that goes into not knowing and not doing it the way, right? We all are on our own journey of that growth. But it takes folks to be able to speak, right? Speak, make choices that are right for you, because at the end of the day, it's you that you're now accountable for saying, is this what I want? Is this what I don't want? Do I have enough time and energy to spend on trying to get somebody to consider, and in some instances, yes, hell yes, the person's got all these other great things and you can work through it and figure it out. But then there's some instances where you really know, like, nah, it's not. Yeah, just let's let's do this part. You know?
Let's do this part where we walk away
Yeah.
from each other.
Yeah. So it's really challenging to do that when someone is committed. But those are things that you can pick up and you say, oh, you're committed. Okay. You know, what are we gonna do with that? You know, and have some additional conversations. But at the end of the day, it's us that we have to be accountable for, you know, at the very end of it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I stand in that. I completely agree. What were you gonna say, Cookie?
Oh yeah, I was gonna say when he was speaking, I was thinking of that saying, like, only a fool argues with a fool, because
Yeah.
that's kind of where, you know, you have to recognize, is this person even on my level to speak or level with, you know, because some people you could talk to them all day and it's not going to matter. And then, like Talib said, to recognize the people who when you know they heard you, you know, and those are the people that even maybe in the moment they didn't say it, but they heard you. And then, you know, you start to see them coming around. I think you start to recognize the people that are, you know, waiting to speak rather than listening and taking it all in and speaking from, you know, like, a place of understanding and wanting to learn from their behavior. But yeah, if you already see it in the beginning as they're just shut down, they're in their ways, and that's it, then it's honestly not worth it. They will come back to it later in life and see it, and that's when, you know, the lesson will come. And so, you know, that's basically, you just got to meet people where they are.
Yeah, no, and you're right. I've been a person to circle back, and I've had people circle back to me. You know, I was with my family over the week, and I had a moment. I mean, you know, where I flashed. I was just like, I was upset. Okay. But and it wasn't too major, but it was just to the point where, you know, the next day, because these are people that love me and because they know my heart and that I am willing to like learn, grow. I don't really want to offend anybody, but you're going through what you're going through and you say what you say, you know, whatever. It was nice. What I love so much about accountability is the growth that's available in it. It was so nice to sit down and say, I'm really sorry, I was wrong. I know that came out like this or that. And I hope you know that I'm appreciative of these things. This is how I feel, and this is why it came out this way. And I'm working on it. I can see it, blah, blah, blah. To me, that's so much love. It was so loving. And I didn't mind being wrong because, you know, it was like, it wasn't about that. It was about creating the space, the container where we could expand and grow. So of course, as family, that's something different, but I value that and love that so much, because if you don't have that, there's nowhere for you to grow. If every time there's a confrontation or an issue and you want to speak up about something, and no matter what, the person's just going to be like, well, you, and well, I didn't. And it's just like, there's nowhere to go. There's like nowhere to go with that. How do you grow? You know?
Exactly. I was totally going to speak to that, building on what Queen Cookie and Talib shared about the growth and the maturity. You know, like, I think we all can do things where sometimes our intentions isn't to hurt someone's feelings or offend them, but we do. And so it requires our level of maturity and love to say, you know what, that wasn't my intentions, but I am still responsible for how it landed and how it made you feel. And because I care about you, because I love you, because I'm trying to be peaceful, you know, all the things, then I can apologize, course correct, you know, think about how it is that I may have delivered it or whatever. But I was just getting ready to speak to that about how, you know, it causes you, even regardless of your intentions, there is still times when what we do, what we say can rub people the wrong way. And if you really want to be a mature adult, I think we all have to sometimes think about that. I mean, even with kids, you know, we sometimes have to think about, like, we can't always be so hard, and, you know, they don't all receive in the same way. So the same way we would adjust for a child, we may have to do that with other adults too.
I love that, bringing up adjusting with a child, because it makes sense, you know. I do think that sometimes the way we approach adult conversations and relationships, we almost should kind of add that in, because we are, for the most part, we're very protective over children. We know that their minds are still developing. We don't want to leave impressions on them that will have them suffering and having to heal from all these things when they get older and all this stuff. So we're mindful, but I try to do the same thing with adults because it's true. You know, you don't have to walk on eggshells with everyone, but it's the mindfulness for me, like being able to see around the thing. And, you know, Talib, I love that you're in here because I know men and women, we're all human, but there are things that we think differently about depending on how we're, you know, weighted out. And sometimes I feel like it's challenging for men to be mindful just because, you know, they're busy, they're working, you guys are logical, you're linear sometimes, you're learning all these things. So, I guess it's not just for men, but what do you think is a block or a hindrance to, you know, a man being able to be mindful enough to look at a whole picture and kind of figure out how to give care in other areas that are not so just easy to see, if that makes sense? Inviting mindfulness into the process.
Well, I cannot speak for everyone. So,
Yeah.
so I speak for myself.
Yes.
It's, you know, it's so many things. I mean, let's just put it out there, especially, for some of the institutionalized things that racism and structures that are in our lives in general. There's so much of it, and it's generational, right? Um, but it's a thing of the pathologies, right? That shows up in a lot of folks, and like you said, it really isn't gender based because a lot of us come from silent generations that raised our parents, you know, that stuffed and wasn't vocal and did not have to be accountable because we have to remember that we teach people how to treat us, every last one of us, right? So if we're not speaking up for ourselves, there's nothing for that person to react to in any way. They just continue to be unchecked and most instances unhealed, right? And then there's a space of just performance, right? There's a lot of performance going on in the way in which people show up because they don't know how to show up otherwise. And if there's never an opportunity for someone to get checked, get healed, right?
Wow.
Then it's going to stay performative, you know. And if there's always going to be an unwillingness, right, to say this is how this way of being continues to show up in my life, but I'm not seeing it for some reason. You know, that's another piece, right? And so it really comes a time in everyone's life, everyone, right, where we have to get tired of ourselves, you know, in a way that that suggests that okay, I'm willing and I'm ready to do something different because what I've been doing, it just simply isn't working. And the performance is killing us, you know, it really is. And it's a lot of performative show up, marriages, relationships, father, everything. And that core is not there because performance is surface level, you know.
That is such a word, Talib, and so true. The pathologies. You know, when I was talking to Jaimi before, you know, she decided to go with this topic, I was sharing with her, like, you know, it's not even just something that I experience just within like our peer group, but just generational, you know, like there really is sometimes a lack of being able to hold someone else accountable. And I really believe it's because it just never has been modeled. And like you said, you know, you shared about the silent generation, and we just kind of, you know, we've observed how our elders just really kind of dealt with stuff. I mean, even when I think of marriages and, you know, this idea of like, oh, there was the longevity, you know, like they were together, but it's like if you knew what they put up with, you know, or the side family that lived around the corner, or, you know, whatever the case may be. It was a lot of stuff that that today some women, including myself, it wouldn't fly, you know. And so it's kind of hard because again, there's not really a lot of um maybe now I feel like maybe there's a bit more of where it's being modeled of how to be accountable not only for yourself but to hold somebody else, and to properly check them in love, not just to beat their ass, but to really like check them of like, hey, you know, what you've done has a ripple effect, and there's something else beyond just, you know, the reactive moment that has to happen here.
Yes, completely agree. That is so powerful. Because there is a lot of performance going on, whether you know you're doing it or not. There is, I can definitely speak to that when it comes to corporate. I'll be having to have that under control because I already know if I'm at any job, it's to take a break from entrepreneurship, to get this check and to go home. We're not friends. I'm not trying to, nothing that, so there is a level of, a performative aspect to how I show up. And it's not that real, but it gets the job done because it's that capacity, right? But when it comes to relationships, I'm definitely always working to grow in that area with friends and romantic relationships, but it's the performance and that thing we put up where we want people to believe we're good. We don't want to ruffle feathers. We don't want to, do all of these things. And that too, in and of itself, can almost be a form of manipulation. Not only are you manipulating the other person, but you're manipulating yourself, your ego, to have you up here thinking of that everything's good, the way you're moving is good, da 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 da. But then stuff hits the fan, and now everybody's getting the reality of what's really going on. And I don't know. It's like, how do you can't force how do I say, a confrontation in order to understand what you're really dealing with. But sometimes I feel like that's why people play games, to kind of like ruffle some feathers so you can see what you're dealing with. Otherwise, how much time is going to go by while everyone's performing, pretending to be, whatever it is to get the job done. And then now here we are a year later or months and months down the line, and we're like, oh, this is what I'm dealing with. Now I'm stuck, or now it's a bigger issue than it needs to be, or whatever. So I don't know. I really like how you brought up that performative aspect of things, because it is kind of like propping yourself up and maintaining a persona. And then, when things start to get deeper and start to get real, you kind of find out whether you can handle it or not.
I just wanted to say one thing since you said that, Keandra, and using the parenthood perspective, because I'm a mom and I perform when I'm tired, or when my battery is low, and, I get home from work and I'm drained as hell, but I need to perform for my son, because he can't see mommy tired. He can't see mommy down. And so, there's times when I feel like I'm forced to perform, and not even because I want to, but because it's like you don't want to let someone else down by not being your best self in that moment. And I find myself doing it the most with my child. I want him to always see me like, and it's like, it's super hard because sometimes mommy is tired, like, and I don't want to play, I don't want to do these things. And so that's just the whole part of accountability, right? Making sure that I'm, making that space for myself. And so I just wanted to speak to that since you brought up that whole topic, Keandra, because I was like, ooh, that was a word for me, as a parent.
Well, and I think that, the great thing is both of you are aware of it. So there's a lot of folks that are unaware because they lack self-awareness and emotional intelligence. So y'all are aware. So that's your good news, right? That's your good news. Trust me. But, on the other piece is that even for our children, one of the things I love so much, I was watching Insecure, and it was a situation with Molly and her mother in the kitchen, and Molly's been messing up all these relationships because she's like, I want perfection like you and dad. And her mom finally says, but we weren't perfect. Like, he cheated on me. Like, we have problems. And what stood out for me in that moment of just reflecting on that was that they messed her up by making her believe, right, that everything was cool, because she needed to see that there is imperfection in relationships. She needed to know that, she needed to know that things could go really, really bad and you can destroy and you can rebuild, she needed to know that, because without knowing that, she had no grace for anyone, because of what she perceived about her father, right? And so I think it's important for us to share, to say, listen, bro, I'm tired, and this is what I need to do, because that will give him the awareness of seeing your face, of having empathy for being able to read the room, and get low sometimes, which a lot of kids of this generation don't know how to get low at all. But these type of things where you are actually supporting his own growth by sharing with him that you feel, you get tired, you need a rest, because it matters. It's going to matter in the long run, if you get what I'm saying.
I totally do. And thank you for sharing. Yeah, I mask a lot of my emotions around him, and so, yeah, it's important. Thank you.
Yeah, it really is.
I love that you said that. Yeah, it makes so much sense. What were you going to say, Keandra?
Yeah, I was just going to say that's such a good point, because it's one of the ways to build their emotional intelligence. All the things that Talib spoke to about being able to read the room, be empathetic to another person, and even just even as they grow, to be a good partner to whoever they choose in their adulthood, to be able to understand that there is some humanity behind this, and especially as a single mom, or like doing it's there's definitely something, an appreciation that I think can be developed from that. And even though I know we're obviously gentle around kids, but we forget how resilient they are too, and how much they actually can handle, like in the protective part of parenthood, but then also like it's okay if we can be a little real. I'm not saying that it's easy at all, because again, we've been modeled wearing the mask, and especially, Black women, it's been modeled before us to do everything, to be super mom, super woman. And so it can be hard to take off that conditioning, and feel like it's okay and not going to damage, the next person that we're being real and vulnerable with.
Yeah, I love that so much. And I'm always careful to speak to having kids because I don't have any. But I do think about it a lot, like with my niece or how I was with my sisters. And, I'm on the same page, and I'm an emotional person. So I'm not trying to drive my child up the wall or be emotionally abusive or anything crazy like that. I'm very aware. But at the same time, like, I'm hoping that I can introduce colors and nuances in a healthy way where it is like, yeah, their emotional intelligence is growing and being built because they didn't just see one cookie cutter version of me. Because just like Talib, how you said about Molly, I have friends who are like that. And these boys, like my friend, she is so good with her son and she is so super mom. I don't know what kind of woman this man is going to end up with, because he's going to look at everybody like, but you ain't there, you are not her. Okay, like, and she's almost doing that intentionally, so she's just so with it that it's like, but and she is doing the things to teach him emotional intelligence all around the board. But I do think that the way you're brought up in the home and those colors and nuances that you get in personality are definitely going to help you shape your emotional intelligence. What do I want? What do I don't want? These attributes are great. These aren't, or I want to show up like that. I don't. Because there's some times where I'll experience something, and depending on how it hits me and how I feel about it, it influences me. Like, oh, I want to make sure I don't do that, because I really don't like that. I don't like the way it looks. I don't like the way it felt. And I want to be mindful of that, because that's not the type of person I want to be, or whatever the case. So I love that. That's actually really powerful. What you guys all said. I had an interesting question that I was looking at when it comes to accountability. And do you think, or how do you think lack of accountability attributes to depression?
I mean, big time. And that's we kind of talked about that earlier, Keandra, as well, that your peace of mind isn't there. It's chaos and confusion in your brain, in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
And chaos and confusion doesn't leave room for much. So yeah, you're unaware. You keep having these situations that continue to develop that aren't good, and you can't figure out why. These are all places where we're not looking at where we've contributed to a situation, or where we can be accountable to the actions of ourselves, and or the feedback that we're getting around us. It's all going to be bad on the brain. It's all going to impact the mental health. And so absolutely, absolutely, yeah, that's
Mhm.
short and sweet. Absolutely.
Yeah, yep. I'll add to that a part of the meaning for me as far as ownership when you don't have accountability, sometimes you can basically feel ashamed of what it is that you've done. And I think shame is one of the lowest things that anyone can feel. And when you are ashamed of yourself or ashamed of your story, that can also cause you to be depressed and feel like you either have to perform or, that you can't fully be who you are, and be authentic because there's a part of you that's ashamed, which also leads to depression. So yeah, I think that it definitely is one and the same. If you can't take ownership of who you are and your stories, mistakes included, then you're always going to be in this place of basically trying to pretend. And that shame it's a terrible spiral.
Yeah.
And can I say one more thing to that?
Yeah.
Because I'm glad you brought that up. It's accountability is like an action, right? It's something that someone experiences from you or you experience from yourself. But that's a word, that's a surface word. And to your point, there's so much that goes into a lack of accountability, right? I know for myself, I was abused as a child. So I lied about every damn thing, like just to try to protect myself, right? I lied about everything, it big or small. I was lying and try to keep from getting hit. And that shaped me, right? So I'm in my 19s and my 20s, and I'm like lying. And then again, that age comes in that part of my life where I'm like, I don't like what just occurred because I didn't know to not do that, and so that shaped me into who I am. But there's scarcity involved with lack of accountability. If I'm vulnerable enough to be accountable, I could lose. I could lose you. I can lose what I'm trying to keep, build, whatever. It goes much deeper, and because accountability is an action, it's the thoughts and the words that impact it a lot more, and what we're telling ourselves and our beliefs about ourselves and our beliefs about the world and people, our beliefs about how people projecting. All of that impacts our choices, and accountability is one of those casualties of war sometimes, when a person is trying to perform in a way because of shame, because it could be shameful not to look a certain way. It's a lot. It's a lot deeper, it really can be.
Yeah, I like all those. I feel like the depression from some people comes from not knowing how to get out of that. Like we said, when you do lack the emotional intelligence, when you do lack the communication skills, and even if you recognize a space where you need to be accountable, you don't even know how to get out of that sometimes. And that's where I feel like some of the depression comes in too, is, well, where do we go from now? I know I messed up, and how do I fix it? How do I apologize, or how do I unravel? How do I do this? And then, just giving up in that space. And then that causes that, that feeling, that tug that always comes to you, and you're always thinking about it. Now you're trapped. We talked about earlier, like you said, what does it mean to me is being free. And so now you're trapped in that space. We tend to talk about forgiveness sometimes with people, and who's holding yourself hostage. You're holding yourself hostage. And it's the same in these accountability spaces. You're holding yourself hostage if you don't, and sometimes people don't even know how to get out.
Yes, that's such a good point. To the emotional intelligence, to not knowing how to get out, the shame of a thing. Because in order to change something, you have to be able to see it. So it's really amazing. Like Talib, you gave a perfect example of how you grew up, why you were doing what you were doing, how it was impacting your life, and action steps to make a shift. That's a lot of work. Like, we're already so, and not to make an excuse, but we're so bombarded with life as it is. I feel like sometimes it can be really hard to sit down, face yourself, take on accountability, take on the responsibility for the harm or the lack of apology or the lack of making amends or whatever it is. Look at it, examine it, then turn around, examine yourself, and then turn around again, find some resources and make an action plan. Like I know for me, it's been a lot, and I love it because I believe we're here to evolve to be great human beings. I always want to be better. I mean, my name means supplanted, which means to supersede and replace. So I'm always like in this growing stage, and I'm here for it, but it's hard work. You might cry, you might be sad, you might have to stop and journal, you might have to pick other things to entertain yourself with. Let's turn off Netflix and we might need to get on some Joe Dispenza, some Wayne Dyer, or whoever else you need to read, and whatever it takes to figure it out, so that way you don't keep perpetuating the same cycle that keeps you feeling this stuck that we're talking about. We all deserve freedom, but it's like, when do we have to get to the point where we see that for ourselves, the gift of self-love and compassion and grace that we want to literally give to ourselves by doing the work. So that way, our path is a little bit more clear and we have more understanding as we interact with people throughout life, because we're going to be doing that for the rest of our life. So, so I love that. You guys brought up amazing points. Okay, so I did put this question down. And this, okay, if anybody wants to share, how has a man or a woman's lack of accountability affected you in your personal life?
Okay. So, I mean, for me, and again, the way I was raised, created a space of really needing accountability. Like I really need you to not be in la la land right now and say, yes, we both experienced this. Yes, I contributed. Yes, you contributed. I really need that, because growing up, it was just what it was. The SmackDown happened, the Hulk smash, and then we moved on with our lives, right? And so that was a sense of, it really triggered me as I became older, and I was wondering why. I mean, I'll get very real here, punching holes in walls and shit like that. I mean, I never met a apartment I lived in where there wasn't a hole that I left and had to patch before I left, right? Until I asked myself one day going to work, like, what the hell is wrong with you? Like, what's going on? Because the feeling isn't good, right? It's not good. I feel undeserving, unworthy of any type of forgiveness, because look at how I'm being, right? So to your point, it's a cycle. You get trapped in it, right? But the thing for me is that I kind of lost my train of thought in a minute there. So my bad. Where was I going with that? What was the question again? I'm sorry.
You were starting to speak to why you need the accountability.
Why you need, yes, thank you so much. I'm sorry about that. So yeah, it's when I was in my growing period, which took quite a while. I mean, quite a while. As I when I began to turn the page, right, I couldn't really expect my wife to be in the same space as me at that point, because my growth is my growth and hers is hers, right? And so there was a level of frustration, but there's a level of frustration on her part too. So this isn't just a one-sided story, but it's like that needs for people to be accountable is synonymous with the need to be heard and seen, right? It means the same thing. I don't want to be gaslit. Like, I'm a human being. I have feelings. I have emotions here. And to feel like someone isn't saying, yes, I did that. Yes, that was me. It hurts. It can be a dagger. It can hurt. It can make you feel like, well, what the hell? Am I not worthy of this? Am I not deserving of this? And so there comes a point where, again, accountability to ourselves, I had to ask a question. Well, to my partners, are you who you think I deserve? Like, let's just be frank with that. Because I don't think so, but this is what I'm getting. So I'm apparently you are who you think I deserve, which now talks to my own worthiness and my own sense of deserving, because here I am being an active participant, right? An active participant in what's occurring. And so accountability on both parts is important, because to be accountable is to say, I see you. To be accountable is to say, I hear you. Your feelings matter. And that's important to people like us who have experienced that not being a thing in all of the world. the folks that we need it from. Yeah.
So good.
That is so good, so good. Yeah, and just to speak to what Talib just shared, in the ways that it can affect you when there isn't accountability, it can basically lead to just mistrust, period. I know for me, even just growing up, there were a lot of family dynamics where, in particular, amongst the other men, rather than there being accountability, there was a lot of enablement. So, regardless of, it being communicated that, hey, this person, makes, the women feel a particular way when they're drinking, they get a bit aggressive. It can turn, the room into a different type of a tense situation that no longer is cool or no longer a family moment. And rather than there being some sort of boundaries established to protect, the women who have expressed how they feel, the person's still invited to the cookout, So it's like
Open bar.
open bar, and it's like, and again, because it's family, it's like, there's a particular story and a particular association that gets put on that individual to where you then have to kind of, guard yourself. But it just sucks because it's like, in certain situations, I'm telling elders, or it could be me or, other people where it's being shared and they're not hearing it or doing anything about it to even step into that realm of protection. And so it can definitely shape the way that anybody, I know for me, it shaped even my expectation of dealing with men as an adult in different types of relationships, of what it is that I should expect, the walls that I would put up of like, hey, like I'm expecting you to basically be someone that I can't trust in a particular, in a particular way. And so there always has been a wall, that was developed because, again, that lack of accountability from such a young age basically shaped a bit of my belief is as far as what to expect from men in general, because sadly, there was just a lot of enablement.
Yeah, so good. I think she took the words out of my mouth, because that's kind of what I was going to say, is when my ex-partners weren't accountable for their actions, I definitely would pretty much put up a defense. Because yeah, there was lack of trust. And so to protect myself, I had to make sure that I was accountable for their accountability. Like, okay, well, just in case this don't work out, let me be ready. Let me protect myself. And then, yeah, there was just no trust there, because you start to build this wall and then they can no longer penetrate that. And so, yeah, Keandra took the words literally right out of my mouth.
I love that. And you
I
guys
feel you,
use,
Cookie.
yes, you guys use such powerful language. It feeling dismissive, questioning your own worthiness. I don't want to be gaslit. Like, to be honest, I didn't even know what that really, really was until about like 2 months ago. I was like, am I being gaslit? Did you hear the words that were coming out of my, what? Okay. All right. And it really did feel, when you're in a situation like that, and when it comes to matters of the heart and you experience certain things, because I am somebody that takes accountability, one, I was able to see that, oh, this is a conversation that we can't have. And now that everything has come to light, it is going to be a walk away situation for me, which is fine. But it also brought up, fresh ways for me to be accountable for myself. Because what I don't want to do is put the walls up, because that's kind of that first line of defense. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because there's nowhere to go if you're sharing your truth, your vulnerability, being a human sitting there with a heart and feelings, and whether it be tears or issues or whatever it is, and to be told it's still your fault and I don't have nothing to do with it. So it's just like the first line of defense is to put up a wall. But when you want to remain open-hearted, you want to remain somebody in society who is not cutting people off. And because I've been that, I've had a wall, like an unpenetrable brick wall that I've been working on, bringing down. But it did teach me a few things, is, not only to stick to my own boundaries, because I feel like sometimes when we're in situations we see all of the time, especially in retrospect, where, I don't think I was honoring myself in this. Let me turn that up as opposed to turning people off. You know what I'm saying? Instead of shutting people out, let me turn up the areas where I see that I can, quote unquote, protect myself without protecting myself. Like, because there's some of us that will, we'll be real gangsta about it. Like the second we feel something, it's like, we about to fight. And it's like, as a woman, it's like, that is so triggering. It's so extra. It brings us out of our element in a particular way. So I'm like, always looking for the balance of how to be accountable for myself, but then also, see where the holes are within myself so I can keep myself out of situations without having to, cut the world off or be cold and do this and that, because it does trickle down. It becomes a thing about men. It becomes a thing about being in particular corporations. It becomes, if you meet a new friend, whatever, and they start acting like the last person, it becomes this mishmash of mess that I don't want to carry that stuff anymore. So I appreciate the opportunity in being gaslit and not having the opportunity to have a healthy conversation about anything, to turn up my own boundaries, and then to also see that, I would like to definitely want to stay away from people who aren't emotionally intelligent, so where you can have a conversation, because it's one thing to say, hey, this isn't working, let's just go our separate ways. Cool, that's fine. But I want to be able to recognize it, because if somebody's not taking accountability, for me, that makes me turn up a little bit. Now I'm blaming. Now I'm in a space of blaming because you're not blaming yourself. And I don't even want to be in that, So there's just so many dynamics where I see, okay, I can take full accountability by making sure I'm sticking to my boundaries, I'm functioning in a healthy way, and that I've got my eyes open, for me in a safe way without having to guard myself. So I don't know, if that makes sense. Oh, I see.
Mr.
Mark
Nash is back. Oh yeah, but anyway, speaking to literally what Jaimi just said, I could totally agree to that, and how I had to look inside of myself too when I found myself in a space of someone not being accountable for their actions, and like she said, wondering where I let them penetrate my boundaries too much, to even get to that level. And
Exactly.
that's the work I've been doing, like the past year, is understanding, where the shutdown happens, why it happens, and going deeper in the layers. Because also learning that part of it was me, and not even giving someone the chance, because like you said, you start to group people in these boxes, like, oh, they did that, so they're like this, they're gonna do this, and finding where that happens, and understanding that not everybody is the same, and giving people a chance, but understanding, when you do see it and you do recognize it, you have to be smart too. But there are, you can't just, I had to learn, like I said, I had to learn where I had these blinders on sometimes too, just grouping people in these categories because they made certain moves like other people in my past. And because I hadn't healed from that, I was automatically pushing that onto them. So yeah, I just wanted to speak to that, Jaimi.
Yeah, we've all had experiences, right? So we have to honor and respect each of ours. So it's hard to hear. It's hard, not just in this conversation, but all over. It's hard to hear the disconnect between especially Black men and women in this moment, and kind of the way in which folks have been showing up. Makes it creates, it creates where we are now. And it really is a shame, because we talk about the enabling, and that's for the most part performative, performance around the people that you're with, fear of losing, fear of being said, and it's not an excuse, but this is generational. It just keeps happening, and unfortunately, And unfortunately for the brothers, very fortunate for the sisters, is that there's a time up sort of thing and reclaiming your time situation that's occurring. And but that's a good thing, right? Because we do each other a disservice when we don't hold each other accountable, hold each other higher, right? The next man or the next woman continues to show up in that way for several reasons, but one of them is that they were left unchecked in the last situation, right? And so they just, I don't know what happened, and they go and visit that on somebody else. But the thing is, for me, and what I understood early, that is that I hate seeing hair in my food, right? Like, I hate it. But guess what? I'm so happy to see is some hair in my food, because now I'm not eating it, right? So I get to throw it out because I saw it, right? And so these are the spaces that we have to circle back to, that first accountability to ourselves. And that's listening to ourselves. Getting out of the performance means that we stop comparing and seeing it from the television and or people that are sitting right next to us, because it's us. It's an individual in a situation with another individual. Feel how you feel. Speak how you speak. Be who you want to be. But that 100% starts with you. You can't expect someone else to show up as 100% if you're not showing up 100% for yourself, without letting someone else hijack any piece of you that that takes your emotions or your mental health or any of those pieces. Because at this point, just speaking for the folks on here, we can spot a red flag from a mile away at this point. So now it's like, okay, thank you for that hair. Let me throw that out, because I'm not eating that, right? And no, I don't want you to bring me another dish. No, I'm good. I'm just going to leave. We don't got to try it again. I'm just out, right? So, because you're nasty. But anyway, but it's real.
Leaving a Yelp review.
Right.
Man.
So it's like, at this point, right? At this point, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, but this is what's going to shift and shape the dynamic, right? Because what worked for us, like you said, Keandra, back in the day, does not work anymore by any shape of form, right? And so, and the only way we stop doing what we've been doing is to stop doing what we've been doing. Like, that's the only way to stop it, right? And so, it's really unfortunate, right? And I think Alice Walker said about being able to understand that love is so fluid, right? And some of us are just got somebody blocking the sun all the time, right? And so we gotta stop blocking our sun, because that means that someone else, right? That person, because I'm convinced that all of my missteps in all those past relationships and all of the missteps that occurred to me, right, got me real clear. Real clear to the point where I've been married now for 17 years, and life ain't been no crystal stairs. Like, but there's a worthiness inside of what we've created here. We grew up together, right? Love is a battle, love is a war, love is a growing up. We grew up together, right? And so now we're in a space where I'm so glad I didn't throw you away, and she's glad that she didn't throw me away, because we grew inside of that. But that person's got to be willing in somewhere, right? And so you can see when a person is unwilling. You can see when a person doesn't have capacity, and unfortunately, you got to go, because we don't have that much time anymore to just like waste it. But we do have the responsibility, our own accountability is to speak, and to say, you know what, you can go be better for somebody else, but I just need to share this with you. Because that helps. It really helps, because without the feedback, folks just out here, yeah, without the Yelp reviews, they just still cooking that same thing that you don't want no more. Yeah.
No lies told. There's like so much value in all that. Like, I don't even know. It's like, that's, yeah.
I'll add to, oh, I'm sorry if I was cutting you off in your mid-thought,
No,
Jaimi.
I'm processing.
I'll add that I think that the lack of expression or being able to speak it and honor your truth is also what prevents us from being able to move into forgiveness. Because it's like you're still kind of holding on and trying to, logically make sense of something. And sometimes people sometimes unfortunately don't even understand why they do what they do, because as Talib's been talking about, and Queen Cookie as well, people lack self-awareness. They just have no idea and haven't had the time or even the courage to sit and take a strong look at who I am and what has shaped me to be who I've become. But we know that forgiveness is ultimately and really for us, and so it just has to be expressed however, whatever, even if there is no resolution or reconciliation or whatever, as long as I can at least just get it off my chest, then I can move on into my healing process. And I think that's so vital, because sometimes, even in the expression, there is no guarantee that we're going to get an apology from the other person either. So it can't be based upon another person's reactions or their behaviors or even how they change. Like, we have to be the ones to decide and make the choice to honor us first and do what's best, and not eat the hair in the food, the plate with the hair in the food, even going back to the restaurant. Like, for what?
Yeah, exactly. I love that. That's powerful. The power of forgiveness. And then, to me, that is the beauty and the value of accountability. Like, I've gotten to the point, where the count it all joy when you go through various trials. I used to hate that so much. Like, why do I have to keep going through these things to make me stronger? How strong do I need to be? But, when things do happen, it is really nice. I'm so happy that I've been having a chance to look at myself, because I'm capable. I actually do believe in myself, and I'm learning to trust myself more. And being that we are people who are always talking about evolving, reading, growing, praying, meditation, we're doing all the things. Now that I experienced a bad habit that I've been inviting into my life, but I'm looking from this new sense of awareness, it was like the perfect storm needed to shift me out of that bull, period. So it's like, regardless of if I get an apology from them or forget, I can do that because I really, at the end of the day, gained so much. But I'm only able to see that because I was willing to look at, well, girl, how did you get here? How did you get here? Okay. Because we know we're not here to control other people. We can't control other people. It's not even about trying to. But like, blame doesn't hold enough weight to move forward or to grow, even for yourself. So, not mad at it. Doesn't feel good all the time, but not mad nonetheless.
And blame can be so distractive. It is so much opportunity to um, be learn from the information that you received, right? Forgive yourself for not knowing what you didn't know, right? Um, don't try to hold or create an outcome that is not right for you, right? So often we try to force people or situations in our vision, right? And it ain't gonna work. We can't. Forcing a thing will never be a good thing, right? And so we have to learn to let go, to release ourselves from the outcome that we had in our head, but also to understand how prepared you are becoming for when it's real, for when it's right. And I wish that for everybody, because when it's real and when it's right, it's amazing. It really is. But there's the ugly phase, and the ugly phase is real. But I hope for everyone that that people are in a situation where the information they're receiving is enough to gain from, and also be prepared to do something different, because at the end of the day, that's all it's about, is our forward movement. When I coach folks, I ask them to stand up sometimes and keep their head this way, and then walk forward, right? Because how can you? Your face is this way and you're trying to walk forward. So it's simply preparation in a lot of ways, and a lot of people don't get it, and it takes a long time. And I said to you, Jaimi, last time, people die assholes, right? People can leave this earth never, ever, ever knowing, right? And that's happened so often. But you hope for our own personal freedom, our own personal peace, right? because it's not for anybody else at the end of the day. It really isn't. But the fruits of it can be amazing if only you get willing, you know?
Oh
There's
yeah,
that
just to
word,
speak
willing.
to Talib, in my recent, like, last year and a half, I feel like I've been doing that, and what I found is I didn't even want apologies from other people. I needed to forgive myself, you know, because I wasn't really mad with them. I was mad that I let this happen to me, whatever they did to me. And so when I learned that about myself, that was when I knew I didn't need apologies from any other person, because it wasn't really the action that I was upset with. I was upset with myself because, you know, that block that I feel like that protective layer was penetrated and I didn't see it coming, and I was angry with myself. And so yeah, that was big for me, and that's when I feel like a lot of the freeing came, because like Talib said, you know, I had to forgive myself and say, it's okay that you didn't see that coming. You're not perfect. It's okay that that person hurt you. It's okay. And when I was able to be okay with that in myself is when the healing really started. And it wasn't about anybody else. It was about myself. So yeah, that was just to speak to what Talib said, because I totally had that moment. Like, I totally had that moment.
Yeah, that is super powerful. Yeah, I definitely relate being mad kind of like at yourself. Like, I let this happen. I don't even be out here like that. And I really let this go down. Like, that's crazy. But, you know, I'm proud of you because you could have went either way. Again, you could have blamed those people for doing that to you, when really it's so refreshing to know that you were able to just look at yourself and realize it. And it's because you want to be a better person. It's because you have a vision of yourself and where you want to go and what you want to be and how you want that to look. And, you know, Talib, you spoke to about it, the clarity that you receive as you go through all these things. It's a refinement. So I think that that's so much accountability in itself, to say, you know, these are the consequences of my choices and it's okay, but I would really like to do things different for a different outcome for me. Because that is the only way to move forward in a healthy way. I just cannot see any other way out of your own stuff if you're not willing to look in the mirror and then be honest with yourself on top of that. So,
Right. And I think so many of us could benefit from asking ourselves how we want to experience life, right? How we personally want to experience it. Not just how we want to show up in it. You know, we can commit to those ways as well. But how do I want to experience? Do I want to be the, you know, for me, I feel energy. I know when I'm being a asshole. I know when somebody's being an asshole towards me. Like, the energy is real, right? And so when I was going through my lowest, right, my lowest moment, when I was just laying there and I said, is this how you want to go out? If today was the day you go out of here, is this the life that you want to experience? You know, and if the answer is no, then we have to realize that there is yet another opportunity. Fate will and the creek don't rise, that you wake up the next morning and you have a new opportunity, right? Because if this is not the life that I want to experience, and life is the longest thing that I'm going to experience, is that means it's not as short as we say it is. It's the longest thing I'm going to experience. Then for me, I wanted to be in pursuit of that, period, because I didn't like anything else. And because there's going to be this pathology, right? There's going to be this sense of there's two broken people, and broken not in broke, but just hurt, unhealed. Things they've experienced in the past and present, that have created space. And then you try to put two people that are fragmented in that way and create a whole. That's damn near impossible, right? And that's where the grace and the journeys and the understanding comes in, but not to our detriment, right? Not to our detriment. So being willing to recognize how we want to experience life is one thing. And then also having the understanding that other people are on their own journey, as long as it's not to your detriment, that's when you roll. You know, but you can have space, you can have grace, you can stick with someone and say, okay, I see you trying, okay, but the moment is to my detriment, right? Meaning that it's done taken from me, it's drained me, it's exhausted me of my emotions, to the point where I'm just like, you know, I saw the meme the other day when women get tired of you, they start writing corporate emails to you. Before
Thank
you
you
get
for
to
your
that
time.
point, right? Before you get to that point, right? What is the life that you both are committed to creating together? What is it that you want to experience? Because a lot of times we're like, well, this isn't happening in my relationship. But are you creating it? You know, are you creating it? And so there's so much contribution and accountability that goes both ways. We have to use our voice. That's the first thing. And if a person can't respect that in that moment because there's a lack of there's scarcity involved when you're afraid to speak. You're afraid of losing. You're afraid that this person might feel a certain way and be like, I can't, this is too much. F that. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is your person. If you can't say what you need to say with your person, then it's not as real as you think it is, right? And so we really got to get to that space. What do we want to experience? Because it's for each of us to have. You know, it really is.
I love that. That was so beautifully said. And I
That's so
love
valid.
Yes. And I love how, again, you know, one of my favorite things that you talk about is the willingness, because it's just like literally everything. And what you're saying creates so much space. And I think, you know, I say for women, just, you know, that this is helpful because it does kind of, I always feel like we're on that fine line. But with the way you said what you said, we want to give grace. We want to be understanding. We will ride. I always make jokes on Twitter. Like, I be seeing people talking now about what women won't do. And I was like, I came from the ride or die chick era. What you be, what you won't do. I was out here treating boyfriends like husbands because we just, you know, it was kind of, I'm an 80s baby. That's kind of what we did. 90s, early 2000, you know what I'm saying? We're all doped up off of 90s R&B. So it's like, we look at those things but then when you go through things, it's like, you think you don't want to give grace or be understanding, or that you're stupid for staying somewhere too long, or this, that, or the other, and you learn and grow in that. But that fine line that you created is just really being able to listen and open up and listening to the willingness and the capacity of the other person. And the second that you're not getting that, you're not a bad person. You're not graceful. You're not an understanding woman. You're not a bad woman. You're not a woman who gave up on your man or none of that. It's just that this is to my detriment now. And it is what it is. Got to get out the laptop, time to get the corporate letter going, and we're out. Like, this is what's happening, you know? So I just think it's important to kind of reiterate that, because just from conversations that I've had with several women, we want to give all that, but a lot of the times we're giving it to the wrong person and not really giving ourselves a chance to have those interactions with the right person. And then, you know, you spoke about how just the communication and the unity between Black women and men, we're just seeing a lot of static, and that's fine because things need to break before they fall together properly. But this is where some of that is coming from. And sometimes when I look at what everyone's complaining about now, well, women ain't doing this and that, well, she probably shouldn't be doing it for you. What space did you create for her to do that for you? It's not that women aren't built that way. And sometimes there's women who are manipulative and doing all these things, but I'm not talking about that. But it's just about two people coming broken, knowing that, but both being willing to do the work to keep that thing rolling so we can get to our 17 years and beyond and, you know, call it what it is. Because you're right. We all deserve that. All of us, you know, men, women, we deserve that. We were not put here to be alone. But I just think we're kind of like tripping and falling and scraping our knees, and we're tripping and falling and breaking our arm, and we're tripping, and then we're walking around like, I'm about to do none of this no more. But it doesn't have to be that. There's, you know, things that we can do on both sides where we're able to see clearly by taking accountability, being who we are, but also being sure about what we're in, you know, with that other person. And when we're seeing the flags or whatever the case, to make moves accordingly and being okay with it. Like, you're not mean for doing that or whatever. Whatever we be tripping off of.
Yeah, and having the awareness that, you know, both people are two individuals that are coming together, right? From two different households, sometimes two different places, regions. There's a lot that goes into that, right? And so you can't expect there to just be this whole harmonious one accord, and nor should it be. But there gets to be two people, right? Two people that, or more, whatever rocks your boat, but whatever it is, as long as it brings you peace, right? But there's got to be this opportunity for each of us to say, listen, I'm teaching folks how to treat me, period. I'm teaching you. The more I concede, the more I say okay, the more I turn a blind eye, the more you come in at breakfast time talking about where the eggs at, and I'm just like, oh, you so funny, there they are, and I go back to bed. It's gonna be a problem. And you just taught this person how to treat you, right? The disruption is I'm good, because that then sends a signal. Oh, I can't just do whatever. And this goes both ways. It's not, I hope the men ain't on the other side like this nigga right here. I'm saying it goes both ways, right? We have to sometimes disrupt, because without disruption, we will continue on the same way that isn't working for us. And that is a disservice to ourselves. That's a disservice to the person that we're with. We got to hold each other higher, because once you understand that the person has the capacity to be held high on both sides, because I've got to live with you. So that means I'm not going to just let that rot, because we're experiencing this together. And I'm aware of that. And if it's gonna be a detriment to me, then I have to speak on it, or else I've just said that's completely fine. And that's the way it will go. And that's how things have longevity, right? Is clear communication, that sweeping away that chaos and confusion. We talk about them 5 love languages. We really, it needs to start with communication, right? Like, let's talk, right? I'm doing myself a disservice by remaining silent. In this moment, I'm teaching you how to treat me. We've got to get real clear about that, because breakdowns are breakdowns because there's a breakdown. And that's on two sides of a contribution to that breakdown. We got to get aware enough. So I really hope people that are watching this, if they're in a breakdown right now, say, how did I contribute to that? How did they contribute to it? Because that's the only way to move past it. Pride and ego, to me, in my opinion, doesn't belong in your household, your family, your friends, because it will break down everything. But one more thing that I have to speak to, and this is to the heart of the matter, is that our mattering conversations mess up a lot of things. And so what I mean by that is that when we don't feel like we deserve, or we're worthy of a situation, or that it matters how we feel, or that we've been dismissed, and so this is what happens, our own mattering conversations show up and contribute to our detriment. And we got to be willing to explore that, heal that, examine it, because that's pathology, is that unexamined, unhealed, and unchecked behavior, and thoughts, and all of that. And so we've got to be willing to do that. That's how we're going to bring this back around. Without it, we're screwed. We're screwed right now. We're screwed right now in this moment.
That is so good and so true. That mattering is so major, and that a lot of the times comes from the whole childhood situation. Like, I literally I remember a season, it wasn't that long ago, I would say maybe the top of the year, where I had to remind myself of that, being that I'm the oldest, daughter of 3. It's like, we all get in this one's the baby, this one's the middle child with the problems. And because I'm good, and mature, or independent, or whatever it is, it's like, oh, like, it doesn't matter if she, feels this way or this or that, because she can handle it. And so I did, I went through some things where I had to re-examine, like, no, like, if it doesn't matter, if you're saying that it doesn't matter to you, then how, it really does become to your detriment in relationships, because you're not speaking up. If the power of life and death are in our tongues, then somebody better speak up, because it's going to be one or the other. It's not going to happen if we're not speaking. So realizing your value, that you matter, what you want, the clarity, all these things are 100% important. And it all kind of fits full circle as to why accountability is so important, because these are all so many things that you have to understand first in order to even grasp how you played a part in a situation to even take ownership of it. So it's a lot of work, but I think it's the most valuable work that we'll ever do. And that's why, I love having you guys on, and your thoughts and your vulnerability and your transparency and your lessons and all that, because people need to hear it. Your mindset and how you feel is, and your heart posture is the foundation of your entire life. So how to make money as an entrepreneur, Bitcoin, this, that, I love it all. But if your mind and your soul ain't together and you can't think on a dime and function and, deal with people in a particular way because you haven't dealt with yourself, then it's always going to be a rough road, a rocky road, or whatever. So I love this, y'all. Thank you. I don't know if you guys had any little tips or stories or anything that you wanted to wrap this conversation up with, but we done gone past our hour, and I love it. This was so poignant. It was good. It was juicy.
I would just say for anyone out there struggling with accountability, you should reach out for help. I think my therapist was the first person to put a mirror in my face, and tell me that I was the root of some of my problems, and it probably I wouldn't have seen them if it wasn't an outsider telling me, and an outsider that wasn't involved. It has to be a stranger. Usually it's well received that way. So that would be my, my little, if you were out there feeling how we've told you might feel earlier, feeling guilty or shameful, or, having ties to any of those sort of emotions, depression, and you feel that trappedness, maybe it's time to talk to somebody, maybe.
We're totally on the same wavelength, Cookie, because I was definitely going to speak to that of, sometimes it's helpful to have an objective person to be able to reflect some truth back to us. But also to be gentle with yourself, and it's okay to think about, how you may have participated in your own lack of accountability, or, whatever the consequences of what's happened in your life, but also to not stay there too long, because sometimes that then leads to the consistent, this condemnation, the shame, and that cycle that can keep us in this place of depression and really just living in our past, and that's not helpful. So I just wanted to add that on top of, when you do have that that person, that professional, or even in a support group, setting that can reflect some truth back to you, to take it and to be gentle with yourself, but to not stay there and ruminate on your past too long.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely get some support. Support is out there. And what something came up for me during the course of the conversation, and the thought is it costs more to be sick, right? You heard that saying, it costs more to be sick. And this is our life, right? And like I said earlier, it's the longest thing you're going to experience, but we've got to really be urgent and about experiencing the life we want. We got to get urgent about our own healing, our own process, understanding who we are. That looks like reading your natal chart, your sun, your moon, your personality charts, all these kind of things. Because a lot of times we're in spaces where we don't, again, have any even awareness. And we're such in beat up mode, which is distracting, that we can't ever see the light. And so I just really want people to get urgent about their forward movement, get urgent about that healing. Forgiveness is sometimes attached to healing, but sometimes it's not, because there are times, and you guys spoke to it earlier, where the healing that is needed, that's not for anybody else. No one else can do it for you. No matter if you deem them the source. There comes a separation where it was them and you've dealt with that. Now that's the residuals that you've got to work through. Get urgent about that, because that freedom, that peace, all of that is on the other side of the scarcity of trying to hold on to what's not serving you. And in real life, if it's not serving and supporting you, it's not challenging you to do anything different either. So just get urgent. That's my plea to everybody,
Yes, I love it. You guys, you said it well, and I'll just lightly add that taking accountability is power. It's powerful. It's power over your own life. Even though it's hard, like you said, Talib, it's way more expensive to be sick than it is to go through the hard things. We are resilient. We are built for this. We can do it. And there's just so much more value and power when you take responsibility for your actions and consequences so that you can continue to grow. There's just so much power in that. It's a powerful thing to do. So why not be here and walk in your full power and capacity while you can? We only get one life. And, you know, like you said, people say life is short, but it's the longest thing we're ever going to do. So get comfortable, go on and get your little mirror out, you know, get to looking and do what you got to do. So that way you can show up, grow, evolve, because even in that, you also bring on different experiences for yourself. So that just leads to a more full life, more loving people in your life. Like, I'm trying to level up. I love expanding my circle, the things that I'm exposed to, the experiences that I have. And I know that that's not going to happen if I don't expand, if I don't evolve, and if I don't make room for, you know, something different. We have to be different if we want to see anything different. So I love it. Thank you guys so much for your time. You know how it goes, y'all. You can follow us all. We've got our handles for Instagram sitting right here. We're always putting up good content and quotes. And I've been putting up little silly stuff lately because I'm just having fun on social. You know, what are we doing? We're not having fun. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. And please make sure to follow Kings Speak on Instagram as well. There's a lot of stuff going on in the stories. And of course, we'll be putting up clips from this conversation so you guys can learn and grow from that too. And yeah, I think that's it. Anybody got any new projects? I think that's it. I think we're all kind of, yeah. All right. We good. All right, y'all. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Bye.
Bye, y'all.